All right, today's lesson 2014 free response questions. These were tough. These are tough. Not all parts of them. Some of them were very straightforward. But I just laugh because people are like, "Wow, this is so hard." I'm like, "Well, yeah. I don't know if everybody ever told you this is AP Calc. It's hard." Read the question. G of x is the integral of this, and so this is f, and g is the integral of f. But they're very specific. They start at -3. And that is right there. So that's kind of important info to know. They say find a g of 3. And so we write it out because they're going to want us to write it out. And put the dummy variable in, the dd, f of t dt. And now we can just go, okay, what's this area? If I ruined it for you, it's 1/2 of 3 times 4. And then this area, 1/2 of 2 times 4. And now we're going left to right. So this is minus 1/2 1 times 2. And I can't believe I'm doing the math again. I've already done this today. Minus 1 equals 9. So that's a g of 3. All right. Part B, what open intervals the graph both increasing and concave down? So they always say justify your answer, but it's good to do this. G increasing when f is positive, that is above x-axis, and G is concave down when f has negative slope. That's it. I've justified it. I don't have to write anything else. I actually put it in because we are looking at it from negative slope, and above is -5 to -3. I put it in interval notation. They actually have it the other way for their answers. That's totally fine. 0 to 2. Habit. Start boxing your answers. Good habit. Make it easier on the grader. Why make their life miserable? They're there to help you, and I know we all hate them, but that's the way it is. Function h is defined by, these are the kind of problems I expect to see on this year's test. Calculator doesn't help you. You have to do the calculus. They're going to see if you're smart enough to recognize the quotient rule, and on the next problem, the chain rule. So I think it's a great problem. Here's the only difficulty that people seem to have. They're like, I think this is a quotient rule, but I really don't know. Go with your instincts, because you got nothing else. There's no point in, well, I think I might. Well, what if I reread it 6 times? Read it once, think deeply about it, and go, okay, if I'm going to find the derivative, I'm going to plug in 3 eventually, then low to high, 5x, derivative of up high, minus high to low, g of x, derivative of the bottom, all over 25x squared at x equals 3. So it's 15 times the derivative of g, which is just f of 3. So 1, 2, 3, f of 3 is -2. Minus g of 3. Already did that on the previous problem, 9. If you screwed it up and use that value here, they will give you credit for it. If you followed through that error and got that answer, they'll thumbs up you. And 25 times 9. I left the 25 times 9 because it's easier to do the math. Able to go with -30 minus 45 is -75 over 25 times 9. Cancel, cancel, 3, cancel, 3, -1/3. And part D. Functions defined by this. Find the slope of the line tangent. So P prime at -1. That's f prime of x squared minus x times 2x minus 1 at x equals -1. So the derivative of f, and you might have gotten lost somewhere in the problem. I know I did. You got to go up and say, what's the derivative of f? Wait a minute, what about that whole g of x h? No, they're not asking that anymore. They do this on the last question. They pull something out of thin air that you're going, wait a minute, I thought that this had something to do with h of x or g of x and all that stuff. Don't. Again, just read the question and answer the question. Don't bring in all this prior concerns from old problems where you got tricked by your evil math teacher. Just run with it. The derivative at -1 is not what I'm looking for. Plug in -1 squared, get 1 minus -1 is 2. The derivative at 2, 1, 2 is -2, because the slope is -2 there. -2 times 2 times -1 minus 1. -2 minus 1, -3. -3 times -2 is 6. Tricky stuff. Very doable though, but tricky stuff. Alright, question number 4. Question number 4, 1, 2, and 3, smooth. Wow, when I got to part D, I was a little bit knocked off. So remember, you don't have to get every piece of every part. And you're probably saying, well, there's only 2 questions on this year's test. I cannot. You can afford to miss one section of one question. It's not the end of the world. You can afford to miss one section of each of the questions. All right? It's not the end of the world. Trust me, you're going to be fine. A lot of panic happens, and I can just tell you from personal experience, it never really helps. So going to be abbreviating here. The first part says acceleration, and that's change of velocity. It says average acceleration, so that's just VA of 8 minus VA of 2 over 8 minus 2. You get -120 minus 100 over 6, which is -220 over 6, which is -110 over 3, and you got to be really careful here with the units because it's acceleration, and I get so hung up on the calculus I forget the units. -110 over 3 meters per minute squared, and I would have written out m for meters if I had a little more space to work with here. Not that I'm bitter about the space. How's the Dimsworth conclusion? VA of t is differentiable. I would write that out. And continuous. I would also write that out. Period. Since VA of 5 equals 40 and VA of 8 equals -120. I would also write this out. The intermediate value theorem says sum V of A equals -100. Done. Don't write a whole book and try and impress them that you know how to write. They don't care. They've got to grade 100,000 of these things in a week. They want to see that you know, hey, it's differentiable, hey, it's continuous, therefore I can apply the intermediate value theorem, and if it starts at 40 and gets down to -120, at some point it hits -100. Done. If you wrote a little bit bigger paragraph, that's fine, as long as you cover those main points. Differentiable, continuous, goes from 40 to -110, 120, has to hit -100. Alright, now life gets interesting. T equals 2, 300 meters, blah, blah, blah. Use the trapezoidal sum, but first write an expression involving an integral. So VA of t, I'm not being specific. I don't know if you need this step. 300 plus the integral from 2 to t of VA of t dt. That really should be an x or something. I don't really care. VA of, what did they ask for? 12 equals 300 plus integral from 2 to 12 VA of t dt. That's your integral expression. And now I always tell everybody 2, 5, 8, 12. There's no way for me to do this without a chart. And we're here, we're here, we're here, we're here. This is going to freak some of you out. There's my first trapezoid. There's my second trapezoid. Trust me, it works. And there's my last trapezoid. So VA of 12 equals 300 plus 1/2. The base is 3, and the heights are 140 plus 1/2, 3, 140 plus negative, pardon me, 40, not 140. Plus negative 120 plus 1/2, 4 times negative 120 plus negative 150. Blast all that out, and I did a little bit of careful math, but doesn't really matter. You should get negative 360. A lot of people box it, move on, answer the question, read the full question. Train A is 360 meters. I'd write it out. West of Origin Station. That's a cool name, Origin Station. I just clicked on my pen. Didn't even know I could do that. I'm going to get a little wild here and go with orange. Hope that doesn't freak any of you out. Wait a minute, I got to find teal on here. It's really not on here. Close enough. So, D, second train, blah, 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 blah. If you read this and freaked out, that's fine. It's 400 up here, and this one's 300 over, which, by the way, means this is 500, because a squared, b squared, c squared. Let's call this x, call this y, call this z. X squared plus y squared equals z squared. By the way, this is exactly, not, well, maybe, this is exactly the kind of problem I would personally expect to see on this year's exam. It puts a lot of stuff in here, a lot of stuff together. Derivative with respect to t, dx dt, to y, dy dt, to z, dz dt. So with respect to t means chain rule the inner part with respect to t. Get rid of all the 2's. Plug in 300, and I'm assuming north is positive. Doesn't really matter in this case. 500. We know that that's supposed to be a t. We know that the x direction interesting, I had my numbers backwards when I did this. The x direction is going at 100 miles an hour in the positive direction, and this we got to plug in -5 times 2. The time is 2, not times 2. T equals 2 seconds. Plus 60 times 2 plus 25. Blast that out, and I believe you get 25. No, that's wrong. You get 125, I think. Doesn't matter. Crash through all of this, and you will get dz dt 160 meters per minute. Tricky, tricky, tricky. But I don't know, after you see it once or twice, it's doable. Reason that problem wasn't so crazy for me was I went, what, 300, 400? Doesn't that make a Pythagorean triple? Oh wait, that's right, I remember this problem. Trains going east, trains going north. At an instant, they make a triangle. I've seen this before, but that's because I'm a calculus teacher. So if you didn't, practice makes perfect.